And we're live. Here we are. We've made it to Friday, episode 5 of Spring into Action. We've had some incredible talent. We've shared some incredible insights and strategies to get you guys up and going into spring so that you can launch yourselves into 2023. Say goodbye to all the disruption. Get moving, get upwardly mobile and motivated. And there's no one more motivating than the special guest that I've got today, who you'll get to meet straight after the intro. And here she is, Charlotte Pascoe, CEO of Stockdale and Leggo. Thank you so much for joining me today on Spring into Action.
Thank you for inviting me, Jonathan. Always a pleasure.
This is all a little bit serious, isn't it, from the chats that we normally have? We've got intros, we've got music.
I know it's very formal, very formal. I feel
Well,
like I
it's
have to
good.
be on my best behaviour.
Y'all, I need you on your best today because we're out here just trying to help real estate agents who feel as though they're in a little bit of a funk. It's been such a busy, tumultuous time for so many.
Yeah.
We can talk about the spicy cough of COVID, interest rates, mainstream media having a go at them. In some regional areas, there's been floods, there's been all sorts of challenges, housing affordability, there's an election coming up. But it's time to stop pointing the finger, I reckon, and just get to work. And that's what this is all about. Some people might not want to hear that, but we want to give them the strategies that are going to help them launch themselves into spring. And I know that you've got a great mind around this sort of stuff. So that's why you're here. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And just on that, I think I don't think anyone discounts the challenges that everybody's gone through for the last however long, but there's always challenges. It's real estate. This is why they talk about ebbs and flows. You've got great times and bad times. It's, that is what real estate is about. But I think it is making a conscious decision to not use it as an excuse or a justification for letting go of what you know you need to do. It is going to be tough, but it's not going to be tough forever. So put in the work now. And as I said, don't use it as a justification.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's what this series is about. It's like, you know what? Yes, there have been tough times. And look, some people have done it really, really hard. And we feel that and we're here to help those people. But, for the majority, there's a moment, and it's not just even real estate, it's across a whole lot of industries. You got to draw a line in the sand and get back to work. And that doesn't mean you're not working already and not working hard already. There's been a lot of change, but it's time for action. And maybe you got to put in a bit more than what you were pre-COVID or during COVID.
I think you just got to put in different to what you were
Yes.
pre-COVID and during COVID. I don't think it's more or less. I think it's just looking at it differently. And I think that's every industry. It's not isolated from real estate. Really good friend of ours owns a restaurant. I live up in the Yarra Valley in Melbourne, and they own a restaurant, and they've had a hell of a time. They spent half of their time in lockdown. They'd spend $20,000 on food, and then they'd have to throw it all out. Then their restaurant flooded when they were finally allowed to open. They've been dealt every bad card that you can imagine, but they've just had to get up and keep going and think differently. And I think that's where their business is now turned around and going back in the right direction, but they're doing it differently to what they were pre-COVID.
You're 100% right. It's taken 5 episodes to get to it, but it is time 100% to think different. In the intro here, it says, don't think, just do, but you're right. Think different, then do it.
Yeah.
And change is a part of life now. We move so fast in everything that we do. Communication is so readily available to everybody. There's so many different technologies coming out all the time, like the rotation of technology and the speed and adoption of it is faster than it's ever been. And so that always takes new thinking and new approaches. So what are you seeing in the market at the moment? Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say on that, Jonathan, that I recently said it to our network. If you do what you've always done, the saying is you get what you've always got. It's not the case anymore. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get left for dead because there are so many changes that are coming into the industry. As you said, the tech opportunities I get pitched something every day. I think everybody does. Technology is there to
Mm.
support the agent, absolutely, but it can't replace what you do. So going back to that, old school, make sure you pick up the phone, you're communicating with people. They've got to know you, they've got to like you, they've got to trust you. Um, that's, I think, where you don't have to change that side because you still have to connect. You've got to
Yeah.
start to think differently about how you connect and what your message is to the marketplace.
I think that's
Sorry.
really I think that's really important. I think it is that yeah, let's not underestimate. Yeah, you can get all these new technologies, we can get all these new softwares. They can promise you the world. They can, let's automate your business so you can sit on a beach and you're going to sell, a record number of properties. It's not just in real estate; it's across all sorts of marketing. You've got the laptop lifestyle. Avoid the hustle. All this commentary. Don't go back into the city. That was something they're talking about today in on Talkback Radio, trying to get workers back to the city. Things are different, but it doesn't mean that you still don't have to work. Like there's
Yeah.
still an element of work involved in being successful. It doesn't happen without work. And you know
You
that
got to
more than anyone.
work smarter, not harder, though, right? You don't have to be in, I mean, every office is different, but I think in all industries, not just real estate, it's not about going back in, picking up your pen and your piece of paper and doing it how you did it 3 years ago. It's saying, okay, well, we've evolved, but our consumer has also evolved. So their expectation of us has changed. You go back 3 years ago and you'd get a deal done. And yes, there was technology platforms out there, but you'd go and you'd sit down with a vendor, you'd sit down with a buyer, across the table from them 1,000 times during that transaction to get the deal done. Now you click a button, they click a button back, and they've bought a house.
Yeah.
So their expectation is that it shouldn't take you 3 days to come back because, everyone talks about the need. Uber's revolutionized, how things are done. McDonald's changed the time frame of expectation. But I think through COVID, we buy everything online now. I'm considered odd because I still like to go to a shop and try clothes on, but people just buy 5 things, work out what they want, and send the rest back. So consumer behaviour has changed so much that if you're
Mm.
not engaging in a way that they want to be engaged with,
Mm.
it becomes too hard. My favourite thing is saying, speak to other people. I put a post on LinkedIn about it. I spent the day with Leanne Pilkington on Tuesday and we just spent the whole day sharing. What have you learned? What have you changed? What are your challenges? All of that kind of stuff. Because I reached out and I said, you're an amazing person. Love to hear about your business. And we spent the day changing. And the reason we did it is I said, I want to be able to learn what worked, what didn't work, and
Mm.
what worked, I'm going to follow fast.
Yeah.
And what didn't work, I'm going to try and avoid that bit. So,
Yeah.
um, I think again, it's not just real estate. And I think we sometimes feel like we're in a bit of a cocoon saying it's unique for us and it's different. It's not. People will always have to buy, sell, rent a home, or, they'll be looking for an investment. That doesn't change. We were talking recently about the fact that come COVID, the whole market was going to crash. We're going to go down by 30%. Everyone was petrified. We're all going to be done
Yeah.
out of a job. We're not going to be able to sell anything. I don't know of a single market in Australia that hasn't gone up,
Yeah.
in value.
I think that's right. I mean, they talk about property prices in Melbourne in particular. I think it was in Fairfax the other day. I was saying, property prices in Melbourne have dropped on average 6% in the last 12 weeks, and you go, yeah, okay. And then they say, but over the last 12 months, they've gone up 27%. So
So everyone's ahead.
you're still a net 21% up. Now, when was the last time you could put that amount of money into anything and go up 20% in 12 months? Like, that's
And as
crazy.
a correct, but then as an agent, it's our job to sell the benefit. This is all about changing your mindset. Change the mindset of your clients. So
Mm.
if you're going to sit there and go, yeah, it has dropped by 6%, it might take, more than a day to sell your home, and we might not have 785 people writing a check, just, climbing
Mm.
over each other to get
Mm.
it. The real estate transaction has changed. It's now, it's moving into a buyer market, which is really different for anyone who hasn't been in the industry, I guess, for more than 10 years. We
Mm.
are going into a different way of doing real estate.
Yeah.
But, it's our job to be that source of information and to be that true advisor and to build a relationship with somebody
Yeah.
where you're saying, yeah, it's not doom and gloom. The paper says 6% reduction, But can we put that into relation to what the value of that property was worth, 3, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
I was having a conversation earlier this week about the beauty of vendors and how quick they are to follow fast with the price going up. And it starts to come back and they're like, but hang on a second, hang on, I'm just holding on to this, I'm holding on to this. And then they spend their life trying to, follow that trend down.
They're like the
Uh,
reverse of banks with interest rates.
yeah, 100%. Um, but I think, it's our job to explain that to vendors. And if they still feel like they're in a better net position than what they could have been if all of these things hadn't happened, then yeah, okay, it might not be with cream and cherries and sprinkles and everything else on top, but they're still getting cream on top. Like
Yeah.
20% increase on any asset is massive.
Mm. And I think, this is something that I go on with a lot, is that, my previous background as a journalist in mainstream media for nearly 20 years is that these reports that they're writing are widely aimed. Like they are trying to cast a big net and catch as many people as possible. So the statistics are usually as wide ranging as they need to be to not get called out for not having them wrong. So they're just a
Yep.
wide whitewash statistic. In your patch as a real estate agent, you should have a specific territory where you specialize, and you need to then counter that mainstream media narrative to what's actually going on in your patch. Let your buyers and sellers and people who want to move into your area and are interested in being a client of yours or interacting with you, let them know what's going on in your patch. I mean, you might have had a 5% decrease, but you might have had a 30% increase over the 12 months if we're going on that formula. But if no one's out there communicating that, if the agents aren't actually, they've got to have two roles almost. They've got to be the news reporter of their area, and they've got to be the guide of their area. And the guide for the people who want to be in and out of it. So, be that help, be that assistance, and if you can, I say it every time. I think I've said it every episode of this series is that all fear is the fear of the unknown, and if you can put the stats out there and the information out there, you're going to remove that fear,
Yeah.
and people are going to feel more comfortable to get into the transactional flow, and things are going to start. Actions are going to start, activity's going to start. So get out there and talk, and the response will be action.
And make it relative, I think, just touching on that. For Stockdale and Leggo, we're 40 offices across Victoria.
Mm.
Got some in Queensland, but let's just focus on Victoria. We have offices that are side by side, and the market has changed so differently for those suburbs depending on the demographic, who lives there, the cultures. Is it immigration area? Is it rental area? Is it high, low, medium in terms of the financial situation of those people? So at the moment, what we've found is along those coastal areas, there's less people going, oh, now's a great time to buy a holiday house. They're thinking, maybe I'll just sit tight.
Mm.
So the transactional volumes in those areas get affected in a different way to what a Geelong office would get. Because Geelong, for example, might have a lot more people going, oh, I can still commute into the city. So the ripple effect changes.
Mm.
You've then got, your inner city areas, but even one suburb to the next is so completely different.
Yeah.
And so if you're not the person saying, yeah, okay, well, let's look at Victoria as a whole. I even spoken to a number of the different uh, providers of information, and I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but I said, why aren't we categorising them? Why don't you give us data that is actually relevant to the patches of Melbourne? So instead of saying Victoria has seen, give us regional Eastern Victoria, give us regional West, give us North, give us South. In fact, then go into Metro and give us North Metro, West Metro, go through all of the different patches, because what happens in the East is going to be different to the West. And I remember many years ago, I bought an investment property, and I bought it just before the Eastlink in Victoria, which is, for those that don't know, a big motorway that was put through. And I bought these properties, crappy little places, just before that opened. Now, I bought those just before the market started to come back a little bit. Now, I was working in Armidale, but living in Croydon, which were very different areas. And Armidale, prices were going up. Like, people couldn't predict what a house would sell for at auction, right? And then all of a sudden it came back a little bit. And if somebody had 1.5 to spend, but they went to 1.8, 300 grand was a little bit less of a push than someone in Croydon who $10,000 is a bit of a change there.
Mm.
So this is years ago. I know the demographics have
Yep.
changed, but the impact that the market correction had on inner areas was a lot more prominent back in, over 10 years ago. It was a lot more prominent then in those areas than what it was in the outer suburban areas. So people are saying properties prices are dropping by, $400,000. Well, in Croydon, you could buy a house for 250 grand. So it's
Yeah.
not like they paid you 150 to get the house. So it was just, it's making it really relative. And unless you're educating people in your area about, yes, okay, this is the general feel, and they're very generalized statistics here, but let's really drill down into what's happening for you. And
Mm.
actually, it's not all doom and gloom. And what we're seeing, talking about investors, for example, investors are leaving the market. Okay, so if you're looking at investment, maybe now is a good time to buy something because we know that the stock levels are reducing, the rents are going up. I think everyone knows the Greens had a fantastic idea about freezing all rent increases across the country for 2 years. Don't think that really
Yeah.
solves anything.
Really, I
You
find
know,
that interesting that the Greens suggest that, but they didn't suggest freezing politicians' pay.
no, or interest rates even. Like, let's help
Yeah.
out the owners who then won't be able to put up the rents as the interest rates go up.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's all of these things there that if you're digging deeper and you're thinking differently to just, oh, hey, here's me with a board where I just sold a property.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't help. The
Nope.
marketing, thinking about the marketing side of things. If you're up there doing a video on Instagram and you say, I sold 20 properties this month. It's like me saying listening to a car salesperson who says, I sold 20 cars this month. My first question to myself is that good?
Yeah.
How many cars should you sell? So we
Right.
talk about transactional volumes. We talk about things that makes us feel good to our competitors, but actually doesn't provide any value to the market
Yeah.
around what you're doing and how you're engaging with the community.
Yeah. And for those watching that are thinking about, well, I don't know, I don't have any ideas for content. I don't know how to, I don't know what to talk about.
Reach out to Jonathan. He's got a bazillion of them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Little
I was
plug
going to,
there.
yes, virable.com, VIRB.
There you go.
um, no, what I was going to say was just listen to what's going on in your office. Think about the phone call. Take notice of the phone calls that are going on with your colleagues and their client base. What are the problems that are coming into the office that are driven by a desire to be solved? And if you start monitoring those and write them down every time someone has a phone call, whether you're in property management or sales or whatever it is, marketing for properties, whatever it is, what are the problems that are inbound into your office that are triggering the conversations that you guys have to solve? That's where you start with your videos. 100%
Absolutely.
every time. That'll be your first 50 ideas right there. And guess what? They continue because the phone doesn't stop ringing with problems. Anyone who worked in real estate knows that. Um, Start monitoring the conversations you're having with vendors at appraisals, conversations you're having with buyers who are missing out, or that you keep seeing at open homes. They are 100% the three best ways to find ideas for your content, and it takes very little effort or thinking on your own part. They get delivered to you.
Yeah. And go and sit down with the other people in the office, for example. Go and actually sit down with the PMs and say, hey, wanting to do some content, what's the biggest thing people are complaining about right now for
Mm.
investors and owners? So, there might be a small amount of people who have investment properties that you don't manage, your competitor manages them. But if you're starting to overcome it and you're giving them the solutions, then the local community who have investment properties may then engage with you and go, oh, this person really knows a lot about being an investor. Can you come and let me know what mine would be worth?
Yeah.
And so instead of just going to the agent that's managing the property, you're now the source of information
Yep.
for anyone who has a rental property. So you're literally opening it up by diversifying your content, but being very much about solutions based.
Yeah, and if you start doing that consistently over time, you're going to own the airspace in your patch, and no one will be able to take it off you. So it's right there. We just need to motivate people to start doing it, give it a go, get over their own fears, give them the confidence to move forward and do it. And I think they'll be really surprised with, as long as they put the work in, it comes back in leaps and bounds. So that's the thing, right? You've got to do that work. Got to be consistent, and you got to show up.
We're not operating on brains. Real estate's not complicated. No one's going to die in the process if you make an okay video, because you know what, you can always re-record it and then do it again. So just get over the fear. We are literally here to help people get the information that they need. I always say real estate's not hard, it's just hard work. You just have to be consistent with it and work really hard at it. Listen to what people are saying and give them the information that they actually want. Like in an appraisal, for example, you listen to all the trainers and all your experiences. I used to walk in and say, hey, have you done this before? Is this the first time? Do you want to talk to me about your experiences? Tell me about it. And I try and remember a couple of things that were really relevant to them, because then all of a sudden we were having a conversation that engaged with them. So you've got a wealth of information. So pick it out and then start, one at a time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this today. Let's talk about that. And Jonathan, how long would you recommend a video be?
Well, Charlotte, that's a very interesting question. We can read in my book how long you think a video should be. Not
I
that
feel
I
like I'm plugging you the whole way through this.
Yeah, this is great. I love this episode. Well, here's the thing. Most social media gurus will say keep it short, keep it succinct, keep it to 1 or 2 minutes. I don't subscribe to that at all. I've got a couple of rules around content making, and one of them is you got to avoid the waffle. The moment you start waffling, you're gone. Like they'll switch off. But your videos shouldn't be restricted to a specific amount of time if you're continuing to deliver the value. So the length of your video should be determined by how long can you keep people paying attention in order for you to trigger them to take an action, like message you or create trust or remember you. So it's probably a little bit of a complex question, but I would say don't get too hung up on how long your videos need to be. Don't get too hung up on how you look. Don't get too hung up on having to hire someone to shoot them for you. Don't get too hung up on having fancy intros like this one did. Just focus on being in the room with them via a device. So talking to them as if it's one-on-one. So rather than saying, it's great to be back again, it's like, great to see you again. It's awesome to have you on this video again. So it feels like you're talking to them one-on-one, and then take the time you need to succinctly deliver the value that they require. And I do that in a couple of different frameworks that makes it really easy for people who aren't natural born broadcasters to actually have a really simple 3-step process to just deliver, identify the problem, the struggle, and then give the lesson. And you can usually do, like if I was to step out of my own way for a second, you can usually do most of those in 3 to 4 minutes. And that's a pretty good length of video across all platforms, I think.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I always focus on in any kind of material, be it written or video, is being authentic. And I think there are some really great people out there in the industry who are great at video content. They're great on Insta, Facebook, whatever it might be. And I think there's this push to start following these people, and as I say, follow fast. But follow fast doesn't mean try and copy and be something you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you are really focused on being authentic in your delivery, you get, the most amount of engagement you'll get. And I said to you, Jonathan, I did a post on LinkedIn last week with a photo of my business partner and I was laughing, and it was literally, I never take myself
Fantastic.
too serious. But I had 10,500 people on that post, which is insane. And I didn't even, half of them I don't even connect with. But because it was authentic to me, and I've had to work through it. Who am I? What do I stand for? What does our brand stand for? How does that align? What message do I want the industry to feel from me? And so when they think Stockdale and Leggo, what does that mean? But I've had to be authentic, because I don't think you can build a brand. You can't build content if you're trying to follow and be someone else. And so if you like an idea, and it comes down to like a script and dialogue, for example, one of the people that I did my training with initially was James Tostovan, who's a bit of a machine when it comes to real estate. He's phenomenal at what he does. And he used to say the line, and I'll never forget it, this is 20 years ago: if you or your friends or family are considering making a real estate transaction, I'd be thrilled if you'd think of me. Right? Great line. I can't say the word thrilled because I feel really stupid.
Yeah.
So I changed it and I turned it into, if you or your friends or family need help with anything real estate, I'd be honoured if you would pick up the phone and ask me because I'd love to help.
Yeah.
So I took what I liked the concept of and then I
Yeah.
turned it into something that's me. And
Yeah.
then I could say it 1,000 times because it was authentic. And I think if you're not authentic, you sound like you're reading out of a scripts and dialogues book. So when you're doing your videos and any kind of content, you got to make sure that people go, okay, that's actually who you are, because they have to know you, like you, and trust you. So you don't want to put out this persona and then you walk in and you're someone totally different,
Yeah.
because then they feel confused, conflicted, and you're actually putting yourself back more because then you look quite fake, I guess, in your content. So be who you are when you walk in the door, because it's so much easier to win the business when you do get to walk in the door because they know what they're expecting. It's like professional photography. You walk into a place and the room looks 10,000 times bigger, and you walk in and you go, where's the rest of it?
It's
Don't
like
make people feel like that with video.
it's like people's profile photos.
Some of them are amazing.
Did you hear my story about my passport photo the other week?
No,
So I went to
but now
get I
I
had to
want
get my passport redone because I have a gig over in New Zealand in a couple of weeks, and my passport had lapsed over COVID. So um, I went online. I did it all. I had photos of me, like passport size photos. I'm probably about 12 months old, but that was still me. Like, it was no problem. So I
to.
dropped
Yeah,
the kids off at school, and I thought, well, the best time to go up to the post office is before it gets busy. So I went up to the post office. I waited in line. I handed over my old passport and all the things, and the lady looks at me and she goes, and I was in a baseball cap, glasses, hoodie, my out of hours tracksuit
standard.
get up, right? I hadn't even had a shower. Like, it was that early. They had running clubs, so it was that early. And I'd rushed out the door. And the lady goes, "Oh no, this photo doesn't look like you." And I said, "Well, it's definitely me. I don't know what you mean." She goes, "No, no, no, no. I don't think it's going to pass." And then another lady from Australia Post came over and she goes, "No, no, it passes. It passes. It's okay." But the one that I had, she was determined not to let the photo go by. And she goes, "Listen, we're going to have to take another photo." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no worries. How much? How much?" She goes, "Oh, $5. No worries." So I go and stand there and she goes, "Oh, you got to take your hat off." I said, "Oh," so I take my hat off. And she goes, "Oh," and so I've got bed head and, hat hair.
Looking your
And
best, John.
no, and
Looking
then
your
she
best.
goes, "Oh, you got to take your glasses off. We've got to make sure that it looks like you." And I said, "Well, if you take my hat off and my glasses off, it's not going to look like me at all." So anyway, take the glasses off. She takes the photo. She comes back. She goes, "Sorry, your hoodie's cast a shadow on the wall. You're going to have to take your hoodie off." And I'm like, really? And at that moment, I realized that I still had my Star Wars pajamas on underneath the hoodie. So I had to take the hoodie off. And so I've got this passport photo now, which is bedhead, hat hair, no
No
glasses,
glasses.
unshaven, in my Star Wars pajamas top, and I've got it for 10 years.
Well, make sure you never dress up to get on an aeroplane because you will not be allowed on a plane for the reverse. Oh, you.
So, and at first I was like really annoyed by it, and then I just sat in the car and went, "How awesome is this? What a great story to add to my life." So things don't have to be perfect, and I think the point that I want to make, if we bring it back to marketing and business, is that if you overproduce your videos, you're actually just increasing the distance between you and your client. You're actually increasing the human distance. So the more intimate you can make them, the rougher you can make them, the more handheld and organic, and the more of you, the way that you talk to your friends, rather than rehearsing a script and trying to be someone else. That's the bigger the distance, that you're not going to connect as well. So the more intimate you can make it, add a little bit of storytelling in there, and you'll start making connections, and you'll start getting referrals, and you'll start driving business out of social media like highly produced, expensive videos never will. So that's my tip.
Absolutely. I think it's the
And
whenever
your
I
photo's a great example of that. It is,
yeah, my head's literally thrown back and I was in fits of laughter.
but it's human.
Um,
That's the key.
it
It's human.
is. It's being authentic.
That's
It's
it.
being totally authentic. And I think
Mm.
if you are, it's so easy to talk. I remember the first few formal kind of presentation speeches that I did to the industry. I felt like I needed to be rehearsed and I was going to be judged. So I wrote down the whole speech.
Yeah.
And for anyone knows me, like Jonathan had some stuff we were going to talk about. I don't think we talked about any of it
No,
because I just go off on my own tangent, right?
that's
My
it.
brain goes in 1,000 different directions. But I spent so much time painting over it, thinking, oh, what if people do this? It took me weeks. 2 days before the presentation, having practiced it 1,000 times, the whole thing, I ended up putting in the bin. And I
Mm-hmm.
had like 5 points that I had to cover off on. And I just talked. And for anyone that knows me, I'm okay
Not a
with
problem.
just talking. But it made me more authentic on who I am. And I
Yeah.
think that's the key thing here is if you're trying to be something you're not and you're trying to talk in a way that feels rehearsed or overproduced or any of that
Mm.
sort of stuff, you're actually, you're not being who you are. And people invite you in the door because of who you are. Know you, trust you, like you. They
And I
have to
think
have
that's
all
a
three.
big I think it's a big trap in real estate because there is a lot of emphasis on scripts.
Mm.
Here's the script that I used to convert 100 properties in 3 months, right? Like, but if it's not you, it's not you. And the human intel can tell when you're going back to your memory recesses and regurgitating something that you learnt, and it puts people on edge because they're like, hold on a minute, this person's actually not engaged with me. They're engaged with something they've learned. So they're rehearsing a script like a tally salesperson. And so we're trained to say, oh no, it's an ad. Oh no, they're trying to sell me something. And so they disconnect. They stop actually listening to what you're saying, and they're trying to work out how to protect themselves. The second trap, sorry, you go.
No, I said absolutely. I agree.
Mm. The second trap is for young real estate agents who end up in big offices and they sit around the table with the sales teams and they've got the big alphas. They've got the top number crunchers, male, female, it doesn't matter. They've got the most successful sales agents in the room with them. And these young agents fall into the trap of, I've got to be just like them in order to do those numbers. And so they become mini me versions. And you see them all the time. There'll be some people who are really successful agents, and then underneath them they'll have mini me versions. It doesn't work. You can only act and pretend for a certain amount of time. So I think you've hit the nail on the head here. You got to be true to you. Don't fall into the hustle mentality. Like, be human, and be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are they your three? So let's go. Let's go. You've got 40. Did you say you got 40 Stockdale and Leggo offices across the state? How many you got?
Yeah, about 40. Yep,
That's a lot. I think
it
I've said
is.
before, Stockdale and Leggo were the only real estate agent in my patch as a kid.
Yeah, right.
They
Well,
were
it's
big.
had a pretty amazing journey. It's been around for over 85 years. Um, Set up by Ian Stockdale and Russell Leggo, and then Peter Thomas took over in the 80s. We actually have a beautiful framed picture from the papers where you're looking at it, you can buy 2 acres in Dandenong for $30,000.
Damn.
Yeah, we had a discussion today about how nice it would be to build a timeship and go back and buy all of those properties. But um, yeah, so and then Pete took over and Pete had franchised it. He really pioneered franchising in Victoria with real
Mm,
estate. It was at its peak, about 100 offices many years ago. Um, Pete's unfortunately not been well for a number of years, and his son Ben and I have taken over the ownership of it a couple of months ago. And so we're sort of going through that, what is authentic to us, respecting the brand and respecting the
yeah.
culture and how the market responds to it, how the industry feels about it, respecting that. Everyone seems to have an attachment to Stockton Lego. It's quite
Yep.
amazing. I was an inner city agent, and coming out into the suburbs was quite different for me. Um, and I didn't have a huge amount to do with Stockton Lego when I started working here. Um, And since joining, it's amazing whenever I meet someone and they say, oh, you're from Stocktown. They go, oh, I worked there 20 years ago. Or my grandma bought her house from there. And everyone has an affiliation with the brand.
Yep.
And so for the marketplace to have that wholesome family brand, I guess, for us is
Yeah.
it's a really big thing to keep. But it's also re-educating the industry, I think, on where the brand is going and what it means now, because it's a very different company to what it was a few years ago, and we're really excited about where we're going. But it is, everything we've just talked about, being authentic, being true to yourself, working out what is aligned.
Yeah.
I'm the least CEO. Like I jump on the phone, speak to receptionists and property managers, and our
Mm.
door is always open to everyone in our group. Doesn't matter who they are, what their pay grade. Our corporate structure is this, not this. So I sit at the bottom with Ben, and our job is to stabilize the company and look after our people. But that's authentic to who we are. And so
Hmm.
it's really easy to live and breathe that and bring people in who have that same mentality.
Hmm. I must admit, every time I speak with you and we talk about Stockdale and Leggo, my memories go back to me as a kid in the 80s during summer, riding my bike around the streets, and all we used to see was Stockdale and Leggo signs. That was it. Yeah, just there was just never anyone else around, and it's really fascinating as a brand that when you've got brands that connect to you that far back. Not that I'm that old, but yeah, it does have that feeling. It's a beautiful brand and business, and you're doing wonderful things with it to bring it into the new era and the new digital way of working. And I think like a lot of businesses, there's been some struggles and some pains, but I
Yeah,
think definitely the the yeah, it's always things should. I think things should always be measured on intent and effort, and if that's the case in Stockdale and Lego, then they're in very good hands because I think
thank you.
you're doing some amazing things for the right reasons, and anyone that's in that group's very lucky. I think so. If you were to
I'm
speak,
I'm lucky. I love our people. I love them.
there you go. It's a little loving fest.
It
So
is.
of
It
us,
is.
So, if you were to speak across your network, what would be three things that you'd want um, them to
From
take into spring? What are
okay,
the three key things for you?
first thing is to pick up the phone.
Yeah,
Just
pretty
get back
simple.
to it. Get on the phone. You're not going to win somebody over with a piece of paper. They've got to connect with you. They've got to like you. Door knock, pick up the phone, whatever works for you in prospecting. Get back, sort your database out, and connect with people.
Yeah.
And in terms of connection, it's not just connecting with the community and the marketplace. I'm a big believer in connect with people who are like-minded in the industry that you admire, respect, whatever it might be, and go out, learn from them. As I said earlier, follow fast. What works, what didn't work. You'll find consistently it's the people who are in touch, doing the right thing, they connect with their community, all of those things. Go out there and connect with people in your community and within our industry that you respect and want to be like in your business.
Hmm.
And the last piece is just to commit. No one can do the work for you. As I say,
Yeah.
my little analogy, it's like a builder rocking up to site, trailer on the back of the ute, turn up to the site, you've got the slab down and they've got to build the frame. So they get out of the car and they sit there and they look at the frame where it should be. They look at the site, they look at the ute, look back at the site, they look at the car and the ute and the trailer and they kind of go, why
Look at
isn't
their
it building
watches.
itself?
Yeah. Yeah. What?
Because the tools in the back of your ute are not going to mean that you build the framework in
Yeah.
that house.
Yeah. Where's
So
the
pick
work?
up the tools that you got. We've all got access to the same tools.
Mm.
You need a phone, database, commitment, and connection. Just go for it. Commit to yourself because no one's going to do it for you.
It can be quite simple, can't it? Like, I think it's a fault in humans actually to overcomplicate stuff.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it can be pretty simple. We've got incredible tools now, but it doesn't mean you have to use them if they're a distraction.
But going back to
Use the
what we
ones
said
that
at the
help you.
very beginning, yeah, going back to the very beginning, we talked about don't use interest rates, don't use any of these things as an excuse or a justification for dropping the ball.
Yeah.
Yes, they're going to be there, but you cannot control the external factors. Everyone says it. Everyone who gets up on a stage, control the things you can and make peace with what you can't.
Yeah, I think yeah, the world's still going. Like houses might be sitting on the market a week longer to get a transaction. Right? It might be a
Yeah.
little bit harder. But you talk to mortgage brokers, you listen to the banks, they're writing more loans than they have in a long time. So if they're doing that and they're confident, and people were mentioning it before that interest rates on some of their mortgages are going down, they're not going up anymore. So as a market, the signs are good. It's still solid. You just have to work a little bit differently, take a different approach, and think outside the box. And I personally think that's the most exciting part of business is when things change and you got to solve the puzzle. It's the bit that stimulates me the most is problem solving. So
There's either a solution to every problem or a problem to every solution. You just got to pick which one is you.
there you go. And on that, Charlotte, I think that's a great way to finish this. You've shared incredible amount of knowledge with the group and the viewers. So thank you for that. I thank you for your time. Go and have an enormous weekend across the Stockdale and Leggo network. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of auctions for the first Saturday of spring 2022. Can you believe that we're in spring already? It's crazy, right?
Here comes hay fever season.
Oh yeah, footy finals and hay fever season. So
Yep, that's it. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Such a pleasure to be here and an honour to be asked. So thank you.
thank you, guys. Thanks for watching Spring Into Action. I've enjoyed doing this so much, I might actually bring this back. This might be something that I continue to do for a while. I love speaking to people like Charlotte, Andy, Lisa Novak, Chris Henry, Darren Prattley. It's been a great week. And if you want, I can send you links to all of these videos, or you can find them on my YouTube channel. They'll be around. I'm not hiding them away. I want people to consume this stuff and get up and about. Charlotte, thank you for being guest number 5 on this Friday, and it's really appreciated by everybody. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Peace.